Hey everyone, and welcome to my video on the Weston style film loader. So in this video I'm going to show you how to load and use Weston style loaders and explain some of the drawbacks and benefits of these. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to load film into the loader. Bulk film comes loaded in 100-foot spools that look sort of like this but bigger. They will come on a plastic core and the film will be wrapped around it. It will come inside of a black plastic bag with a box or a tin around that. This film needs to be handled in perfect darkness, either in a dark bag, a film changing bag, or in an interior room with no lights on and no windows, obviously. So if you take your film out of the bag, like this one has been, and just expose it to light, you will ruin much, if not all, of your film. So don't do that. So in the dark, we're going to unscrew this screw right here, and we're going to pull out this housing. This is the housing that provides a light-tight seal and also a gate that allows us to use this loader. We'll see how that works in a minute. Here's the inside of the Weston loader. I'm going to grab the roll of film, and we're going to drop it right around that central core. We're going to open up this door right here. We're going to feed the film out this way. I'm just going to hold on to it like this because this is how we're going to load it in a minute. Next, I'm going to feed this housing back into the body, and if I've done my job correctly, that film should move very easily, and it is. Next, I'm going to screw the housing back in. There we go, and we're set. At this point, what you want to do is rotate this backwards, okay? We're going to rotate this until this notch is up here at the top of this. Then, when this is closed, Then when this is closed and this notch is up here, you can now safely take this out into the light because we are now ready to start using this. Okay. So one of the nice things about the Weston is it comes with a bunch of different safety mechanisms, okay? So this is one right here. And this little lever up here, or arm, or whatever you want to call it, when it's up this way, the film door here that we need to access to load the film can be opened. When it's down, this now is locked, so we can't get into it. But when we lift this up, we can now take this lever and open up the film door. This lever is another safety mechanism. If we only open up the film door with this lever, we can protect our film. Why is that? Because as soon as this little is just past this door, we can open it. But if we do so, you might be able to see there's an easy way for light to get down into the area where the bulk film is and ruin a big chunk of our bulk film. So one of the nice things about the Westons is that they're designed to be very, very user-friendly and foolproof. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is show you how to actually load film into cassettes with the Weston loader. We're going to lift this arm up this way. We're going to lift this gray arm so that we can now access the inside. Okay. We're going to grab a reloadable film cassette, and in a minute I'll show you how to do this exact same thing with a factory cassette. We're going to pop the bottom off the film cassette and disassemble. Next thing we need is some tape. I like masking tape for this. It's easy to remove, it doesn't leave an adhesive residue, and it's a little bit more secure than is Scotch tape or cellophane tape in general. We're going to put a bit here onto the film. Then we're going to wrap the other end around like this. Okay, so you can see that the tape is on the underside as well as the outside. Tape is cheap. Having tape slip off of your central spool and drag across your shutter and ruin it is not cheap. So this is a pretty secure method of taping these up, what I'm doing right here, that I've never had issues with. However, on the times when I have skimped with tape and just had it barely touch this, I have had issues. Never ruined a shutter, thankfully, but I have had film come off of the spools inside of cameras. So once that's taped up, we're going to put the cassette back together. And we're going to drop it into the loading area here, just like this, maybe. There we go. That feels pretty good. Did I do that backwards? I did that backwards. That's the problem. You got to do this the correct way around. So doing this the correct way now, we're going to hold the central spool like this. I'm going to put the tape on it. And that works. Okay. Why was that wrong the other way? Because we're loading this backwards, basically. So the film is going to feed through the camera with the bottom of the camera is going to rest right here. And so the film is going to come off this way. So we're basically replicating the way that this goes through the camera. So we're just going to... And the issue wasn't with how the film was being held in place. It was with the way that the central spindle was loaded. Okay, so now that's all loaded up correctly. That's the way that should look. The little nub on the cassette goes down on this side right here. We can now close this, put that arm down, which gives us the ability to open that, and we can start turning. And if we have done this correctly, which I can tell you right now I have not because we can't hear it, there's a counter in here that will count off the frames as we advance the film. I will show you how that works. When the cassette is in here, these sprockets holes should be over these sprockets. Okay. Bear in mind, if you're doing this for real, do not open up the back of this and watch this happen. You will ruin all of your film. This, while you are working, must be closed. Okay. But I wanted to show you the inside of how this is working since we can do that. And then you just wind and wind and wind. And you're going to count however many frames you want to have on your roll of film as the clicker mechanism in here clicks. And then when you're done, lock this all the way up. Use the gray lever to open this. Pull that open. Cut the leader. Pull that out, and there you go. You now have a rolled up roll of 35mm film. Okay, but look, reusable cassettes, they can be a little bit spendy, and why not just use a factory cassette? Because you can buy one of these, use the film that came with it, and then reuse the cassette. So this is possible to do. One of the things that you want to do is either have your lab, if it develops it, or if you develop it at home, leave a short little bit of film like this out at the end. Then you're going to grab some cellophane tape like this. Masking tape will work, but it can be a little bit thick, and that can damage the felt on these over time. So I'll tend to use cellophane tape for this. Double stick tape I don't recommend. If you put double stick tape on this side here and it lets go of the back of the film, then what's going to happen is the film that's going through the camera is going to drag that double stick tape, which is on the emulsion side of that film, right over the shutter curtain, and that can damage it. If you want to use double stick tape, you want to put it on the emulsion side of the factory cassette, because then your bulk film, the backing of that will touch the double stick tape. So if the double stick tape releases, then either the double stick tape will stay here with the cassette, or it will be on the back of the film that's going through the camera and be less likely to cause damage. But I'm going to use cellophane tape and a nice healthy length. Tape is cheap, new shutters are not. We're just going to load this in here. And we're going to pull out a little bit of leader. Actually, we're not going to load that in there just yet because I need more working ability. We're going to kind of line these up. doesn't really, the sprocket holes don't have to line up. The only thing that really has to line up is that the film that's attaching to it needs to be well aligned in terms of straightness with the film that it's connecting to. So I have now done a full wrap of the tape around the factory cassette. So we can see here on the top, tape's held well. We can see here on the bottom, the tape is holding well. I'm pretty comfortable with that. We're going to drop it into the loader here. Tighten up the slack just a bit. Close up the loader. And now, same process as we just had before. We're just going to, hopefully, going to count the frames, that everything's hopefully aligned like it's not right now, but count the frames as they click, and then we know that we have loaded up however many frames we want onto our cassette. When we're done, we take our cassette out. Now, I'm going to show you how I know that this is a decent way, loading up these is a decent way of doing it. Well, one, this is how the Shanghai Film Company has been doing it, at least on the ones I've bought from them. But when we pull this out, that is a pretty secure grip. That's a lot of force I had to put into that. But when it comes time to load this onto a spiral to develop it in the tank, we can pull this off of the factory cassette. We don't have to recut the cassette. I did maybe use a little bit too much force because that's a little bit wobbly now. Yeah, I damaged the film inside of it. So maybe used too much tape, or maybe it's still a good idea to manually peel the tape off. Either way, that is a good way to get a handful more uses out of your factory cassettes, which can help save money if you don't want to just simply throw those away. Now, I do have some tips for you on how to use this. When you are using these loaders, make sure that before you shut this, that the sprocket holes are on the sprocket teeth, because that'll give you the best chance of the clicker working. Also, try to hold this generally flat and then roll it like this. Make sure that you are using all of the safety mechanisms, because that will help make sure that you are not scratching your film or fogging it. If you have a very hard time spooling your film, then you might be pulling it through a closed gate. So make sure that you don't have the gate in this chamber closed, because pulling it through that will 100%, I guarantee, scratch the ever-loving heck out of your film emulsion. So I would also say with this, if your clicker is engaged, count the clicks, because that's a really good way to know exactly how many frames you've got on your film. When you're done, what you want to do, when you've loaded up your film into this, when you've loaded your film into the Watson loader, I tend to put a piece of tape here, and then when I'm actually in the process of loading, I'll take it off and hold it here. Having the tape over this is just an extra measure of security to make sure that things don't get open, and also to remind me that I have film in here. Then when I finish the roll of film and I spool up my last one, I'll grab the tape that I had used to indicate the film and put it onto the cassette. All of your cassettes should have the film type and also the frame count. That's a minimum amount of data that you want to have on your film to make sure that you can use it well. Okay. The other thing that you want to do is grab a nice long length of tape and put it on the outside of the cassette tub, and leave a lot of blank space here. You can write the film type in the number of frames, and then here you can write things like whether you pushed it or pulled it, ideas you want to do for developing, things like that. And you also have a little bit that you can tear off here if you need something else to write on, or some other notes to take, for instance. Better to have this and not need it, right? And it doesn't take up any space to throw a little bit of extra tape on your cassette tub. And then what you can do when you have your GP3 x 36 at 25 ISO, this masking tape can be moved to the bottom of your camera so that you know that your camera is loaded with film if you don't have a window on it, what type of film it is, how many frames, and what the exposure ISO is. It's just a really good way to communicate with your future self about what type of film you've used. There are some problems with the Weston loaders. They are a bit large. These are big loaders. They take up a lot more space than the Lloyds, for instance, which are, as far as I know, the smallest loaders on the market. They are also a bit over-engineered. They have a lot of things in them that are good for making sure that you don't accidentally fog the film, but with all that engineering, it's still very easy to accidentally fog the film by opening the film door to load it when this isn't fully engaged and locked. So it is, even though these are engineered, and if you follow the steps exactly, they are foolproof. If you cut corners and don't follow the steps, you can absolutely ruin your film with these. Not opening this gate all the way when you spool your film can cause your film to be scratched. Not opening it at all will cause your film to be scratched. If you don't properly align the sprocket holes inside of here with your film, like you could see right now if I just started pulling this film into a cassette, those sprockets are not aligned with the sprocket holes. And over here, those sprocket teeth are in the emulsion area that will be recording image on this film. So if this part of your film is not properly aligned, you're not going to get your clicker to count your frames with. You'll have to go by the number of turns like you do with the Lloyds. And also, these sprocket teeth can scratch the emulsion side of your film and leave a scratch on one side, either the top or bottom of your negative. These are also a bit more wasteful of film than are the Lloyds, as a specific example, because to load up your film, you need this whole long leader. Well, if you have a smaller camera, then some of what's ruined here can end up in the last frame of your photo, and that's happened to me with a lot of cameras when I've used Weston loaders. So if you're going to shoot 36 frames, let's say, maybe spool this up to 38 just to give yourself a little bit of cushion. But for those flaws, these do have a lot of really good benefits. They are, like I've said multiple times, pretty well foolproof. There's no internal felt inside of these at all, which can trap dust. Like on the Lloyds, those have a felt barrier that can trap dust and scratch your film. These don't have that. They are light and durable, so these are lighter than the Lloyds, and if you drop them, the material is a little bit more durable than the Lloyds. I've never seen one of these or any of the competing similar models that are cracked. They're very easy to load and they're very easy to use once you have the specific order of operations down. They're designed to provide an accurate number of frame counts, and they do that very well when used correctly. They are, however, a little bit slower to bulk spool multiple rolls of film than are the Lloyds. So if you're going to drop 100 feet into each one of them and load up 19 rolls of film from each at the same time, this will just take you a little bit longer. So either one, Lloyds or Weston, are both very good. Both of them have a point. One other advantage to these is that they have a larger film chamber here than the Lloyds do, so you can pick up film that has a larger core diameter and put them in here, whereas sometimes films with larger cores don't like loading into the Lloyds quite as easily. So that's the Weston. Thank you everybody very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.